Hello, my friends. I woke up this morning thinking we should all be together for Shabbat in Budapest, and like you, I'm really a little bit sad that we haven't been spending this whole week together. I hope you're with people you love and that everybody is safe and healthy. But it's really unfortunate that we're not together. I hope you managed to get yourself a piece of Viennese apple strudel or Viennese coffee, and maybe over Shabbat you'll have some goulash that we might have had in if we were together in Budapest. But I wanted to share with you a Dvar Torah that I had prepared before I knew that our little escapade was going to come to an end. Um, that I would have been sharing with you this Shabbat, Parshat Chukat, in Budapest. Had we been together, I would have reminded you that we had started the week off in Prague, and we were ending it here in lovely Budapest. And I was going to share a thought about the death of Aaron HaKohen, which appears in a number of places in in the Torah, here in Parshat Chukat, as well as mentioned again later in Parshat Masei and in Parshat Ekev as well. We know, of course, the Mishnah in Avot tells us that Aharon HaKohen was the Ohev Shalom, Verodev Shalom, Ohevet Abriot, Umakarvan LeTorah. He was this person that exemplified uh, human virtue and interpersonal relationships and the strength of bringing harmony between people, among people, and in the entire nation. Something, of course, which we're always still in need of. But if he exemplified this on the horizontal plane of interpersonal relationships, he also was the master of the vertical plane between heaven and earth, as the singular figure who could enter lifnai v'lifnim into the holy of holies on Yom Kippur. The Kohen Gadol represents someone who's able to uh, form an encounter with the divine. And not only on Yom Kippurim, the Vilna Gaon, who those of you that were with us in Lithuania remember, on that occasion we spoke a lot about the Vilna Gaon. The Vilna Gaon was of the opinion that Aaron was unique, even distinguished from subsequent Kohanim Gedolim, high priests, in that Aaron was able to enter the Holy of Holies not just on Yom Kippur, but any day that he was performing the service in the Holy Temple. He was able to go in. It's quite iconoclastic position, but nevertheless. So Aaron is someone who masters the horizontal interpersonal plane down here on earth, and represents the vertical connection between God above and the Jewish people below. The Gemara in Masechet Ta'anit says that the Amud Ha'anan b'schut Aharon, the pillar of cloud that protected or did something or represented something in the desert encampment, was there in the merit of Aharon, and when Aharon dies, the Amud Anan disappears. It leaves us, it vanishes us. And there's an interesting machloket. There's an interesting machloket between the Kli Yakar, at whose grave we would have stood this week in Prague. Kli Yakar was the Rav in Prague after Maharal. He was the Rav in Prague at the beginning of the 17th century. He died in 1619. His name was Rabbi Shlomo Ephraim ben Aaron Lunchitz. He wrote. He's most well known for his important Torah commentary, the Kli Yakar, the precious vessel. So the Kli Yakar says that the Anan, the cloud, wasn't primarily there to protect the Jewish people. That's very often how it's represented. This kind of protective cover, like we all here in Israel were protected by the Iron Dome throughout all of our troubles this last period. The miracle that our enemies can be showering us with rockets, and the Iron Dome is snatching them out of the heavens before, in a very 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 high percentage of cases, before they can land on us. Although I'm aware that at least one of you suffered some shrapnel through her living room window, and thank God she's okay, but her house was damaged. But that was the purpose of the Amud Ha'anan, to serve as protection. So Kli Yakar says that was not necessarily the main point of this cloud cloud of glory resting upon the Jewish people. It's not for protection per se, but it's representative of the presence of the Shekhinah, of God's holy, divine presence and immanence amongst us. And that as long as we were in the desert and we had this cloud above us, we were cognizant and conscious of, of God, of God above us. And therefore, Aaron, whose role it is on the vertical plane, was there to was there to was there to represent the connection between heaven and earth. And in Aaron's absence, the Anan dissipates or blows away or disappears to indicate that somehow that connection is lessened. The Khatam Sofer, the great granddaddy of Hungarian Jewry, about whom we would have spent a lot of time talking in Hungary. The Khatam, or Chassam Sofer, as he no doubt would have referred to himself. Chassam Sofer dies in 1839, and he is the founder, to a very real degree, of what we today think of as Haredi Jewry. He represents a very strong response to modernity. But he says something very interesting. He has a different position about what the cloud was. He really does point to the idea of the cloud as protection, but for a unique idea. It serves as protection because what really endangers the Jewish people is disharmony and the fractiousness. Very interesting, considering his role in Jewish leadership. But yet he has a commitment to this idea of people working together and people getting along, and there being harmony between people and their fellow people, fellow man, fellow woman. And what the cloud does, it offers protection, he says, from the ayin hara, from the evil eye. One need not interpret that mystically per se to understand that somehow, a cloud represents, the fog. You don't always see everything that needs to be seen. You're not always casting your own evil eye on someone else, because that kind of lack of privacy, lack of overexposure, something that we in our time are so are so are so inundated with. That a little bit of cloud is good because it allows people to overlook these are my words, not his, but I think I'm getting at his idea. A little bit of a cloud helps us overlook the flaws of other people, and it helps to promote uh, unity and harmony and brotherhood and ava, achva, v'shalom, v'reut among the Jewish people. And when the Jewish people are united, then automatically we're protected from those on the outside. Another message, of course, that resonates so much with everything that's been happening in the Jewish world since October 7th. So therefore, the Chatam Sofer here in Budapest reminds us that the cloud is really principally for protection, but for the Oev Shalom V'Rodev Shalom purposes, for the idea that Aaron represents somebody who can get the Jewish people together despite their differences. And without him, we're lacking that virtue, or we're a little bit short on it, and we are lacking that protection. Kleyakar, who we met earlier in the week in the cemetery in Prague, he describes the vertical plane, God's presence amongst us. So interestingly, these two figures who we would have encountered this week and would have learned much more of, they are able to, if you put them together like pieces of a puzzle, they're able to show us how Aaron HaKohen and both aspects of his important personality were represented in the Jewish encampment, and how his absence leaves us a little shorthanded on these two virtues that we really do need, from the time of his death up until our very own. I hope in a year from now, at the end of June 2026, as many of us as possible will be able to get on those planes and get on that bus and meet again in Prague and we'll all, of course, stay in touch over the course of the year. And we're looking forward to seeing you again or meeting you in person for the first time. I know I speak for our friend and guide and teacher, David Bernstein, as well as El Yokim and all the rest of the staff, that we're looking forward to being with you sometime soon. Shabbat Shalom.